Okay. All right. So I want to welcome Joe Karl, who is a Poli Sci alum. He had a double major. He can tell us about that if he wants to. But anyway, welcome, Joe. Joe is a class of 2010. And so I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So you were a Poli Sci major, but what was you did have a double major, and I think that
Did.
might be of interest to some people. What was your other major?
So I double majored in business administration with emphasis on marketing.
So was that I think that was your original major, right? And then you added Poli Sci. So how did you come to add Poli Sci?
Well, actually, I started at Mizzou as a civil engineer major, and
Oh, okay.
then I jumped to Poli Sci, and then I added business after the Poli Sci was added. So I actually had quite an evolving career decision choice when I was at Mizzou. But to get to your question on why Poli Sci, actually, politics was always something I was super interested in. I think even back in high school, I remember watching The West Wing, and that the show was just super interesting to me. And actually, I was in your Poli Sci 1100 class, and I was like, man, this is my favorite class that I'm in freshman year. And I was like, I'd love to learn more about this stuff. This is a subject that really interests me, and so that's why I kind of I picked Poli Sci as a major. And politics has always been something that I've been super passionate about. While I don't work in politics now, it's something I find myself reading Politico all the time, and still very passionate in following everything closely. So a little bit of a long-winded answer, but that's kind of how I got to the Poli Sci major.
Well, so you say you don't work in politics now, but you kind of really worked in politics as a student, right?
I did, yeah.
So what
So
you
I for 2 years, yeah, I was gonna say for 2 years while I was at Mizzou, I was an intern on the Associated Students of the University of Missouri lobbying arm that went down to Jefferson City, and then I actually served as legislative director for a year, and then I was the board chairman for a semester across the total system. And for those of you guys that don't know, ASUM is kind of the student voice of government in Jefferson City, and we work to influence state legislators on funding for the university. Also, advocate on students' behalf for issues that may be relevant to them. So, things that we covered while I was there, we were talking about, landlord-tenant relations, as a lot of students are renters. We also talked about trying to get the student curator a vote on the board of curators, so that way there's more, the student voice is heard and has a voting voice on the board of curators. So those are a couple things we worked on while I was on at ASUM.
I am familiar. The student curator thing is still an ongoing issue, as you probably know. But they're pretty excited. I think they're feeling very optimistic about this upcoming legislative session, the 2021 legislative session, that they might have a chance at it. So stay tuned. So you
That's
mentioned
awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah. So you mentioned the West Wing, which actually is kind of a fascinating topic because you are of a particular age of student who, of whom a lot, right? So I'm old. I've been here for 20 years. But a lot of students that kind of started in the that first decade of the 2000s have said the same thing to me, that they were just fascinated by the West Wing. So I am currently, like we started, this is a pandemic project, right? My daughter is 17.
Yeah.
She is a senior in high school. We've watched our way through just about everything there is on Netflix. And I said, and she loves politics. She's very active. And I said, we should
Sure.
watch The West Wing. And she's completely hooked. We have to watch it like every night. So I'm working my way back through The West Wing. I haven't watched it since it originally aired. So what was it to you that was, if you remember, what was it about The West Wing that you found so interesting?
I love the fast-paced nature of the show. I also, it covered so many different topics, and what I liked about it was the fact that every day they were trying to solve a different major problem that the country had. And I think it was kind of like this ideal setting where, they didn't get bogged down in the politics of it, but they were always talking about like, hey, here's a problem, how do I go and fix it? And I think that part was exciting. And then also it educated you on what are some of the hurdles that come up in government, and how does a law have to go through all of these different things to get accomplished? And then like, what does kind of your average legislator look like? They're just normal people. These staffers are just normal people, but there's all these people behind the scenes that you don't get to see. And so like, I don't know, I think the stories were really personal, but you also kind of get to see, you got to see how the sausage was made, which isn't always an exciting thing. But to me, I felt like the show brought you in, and that's why I felt a ton of passion behind it. I also think, there was a lot going on in the world, even as I think back to high school and college. In high school, it was 9/11. I was in 8th grade when 9/11 happened. And so, there was a ton of conversation going on around, what do you do in Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff like that. And then also, while I was in college, you had kind of the Great Recession. And so it was like, how do you fix these national problems of, mortgage lending and the stock market and all of this stuff? And so as I think about Poli Sci, it was like, hey, if I understand the broader scheme of what's going on in the world, like maybe there's a better chance of trying to fix those bigger problems. And so I know that's where I found a lot of the passion, and it was educational for me, but then that's what made me so excited about Poli Sci. And then the West Wing was kind of a bridge to get there.
Yeah, well, it is. So we won't dwell. This is not West Wing talk, and actually, there are a couple of great West Wing podcasts. There's one that stars that's done by Josh Molina, who came on to the West Wing maybe in the third season, and he goes episode by episode. They have it. There's a podcast about every single episode of the West Wing. It's really cool to listen to. Anyway. So you mentioned yet another. You're doing a very fine job, Joe. I just want to praise you on this. You mentioned the Great Recession. So you graduated at a time when it was not great to go on the job market, and students who are maybe not starting college, hopefully in 3 or 4 years things are going to be smoothed back out. We'll be humming along again. But right now it's kind of a rough time to think about entering the job market. But what was that like for you when you graduated, and then maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you've been doing career-wise?
For sure. I think it was a extremely difficult time. I actually remember I had an internship lined up, and I was, like I said before, business and Poli Sci double major. And so, I was a little bit nervous going into a political field. I thought about, should I work on a campaign or should I work with somebody? And I was like, man, if I'm working on a campaign or if I'm working for a legislator, my job is going to be in flux every 2 or 4 years. And I'm like, I was a little bit nervous about, having to potentially look for a job every 2 years. And so I leaned a little bit more towards the business path. And I actually had an internship lined up with Walgreens, I think during the summer of 2008 or 2009, I don't remember. But then I remember they called me on St. Patrick's Day that year, and they said, hey, we're canceling your internship because of the Great Recession. And so I was like, I had this summer job lined up, no more. That stuff happens, and then I remember the next summer I went back and I interned with General Mills, and that's where I am now. I've been with General Mills for almost 10 years, and General Mills is a great company that I've kind of grown to love and been able to advance throughout my time there. But really, what excited me about General Mills, and I work in sales, and so I actually had a ton of transferable skills from the political science aspect of working in ASUM and at the state capitol. As I think about working at the state capitol, I had to try to convince legislators on, why they should vote yes on a bill or support our cause. I find that I do that a lot now working with customers that I sell to. So I have to try to convince them to take a new item. As you go into the grocery store, you have to, try to sell in those new items at the grocery store, or to take a certain amount of product to satisfy when we put something on sale. And I would tell you that ASUM taught me a lot of those skills about how do you negotiate with somebody and how do you articulate your case. I would also tell you a lot of my political science classes, especially Poli Sci 3000, kind of taught me the creative way of like researching and understanding data and how to understand like when I talk about selling Cheerios or something like that, I have to help the customer forecast how much they need to order. Or if we launch Cheerios and Cinnamon Toast Crunch next to each other, how much do those two items interact? And so like if Cheerios sells more, does that mean Cinnamon Toast Crunch sells less? Well, a lot of that analytical thought process came from some of the studies I did in Poli Sci 3000 and some of my subsequent classes where I had to do independent research and stuff like that. And so I would tell you a lot of transferable skills into what I'm doing now from what I learned at Mizzou and Poli Sci, and then also at the state capitol.
Well, that was great, Joe. No, that was really. But yeah, I think when we talk to prospective students and if they come with a parent, the parent always wants to know, what's my kid going to be able to do with a degree in Poli Sci? And what I always say is sort of what you just said. I mean, you learn skills about how to answer questions, right? And that's true, I think, for almost any liberal arts degree. And so I don't,
Yes.
I think anything that is similar to Poli Sci, history, psychology, sociology, you learn those same skills, and they're great for lots of different careers, right? And so one of the things in
For
doing
sure.
these interviews that we've gotten to see is that people have their Poli Sci degree and go and do a broad range of stuff with it. So so you've been with General Mills for 10 years, and is that do you view yourself as sort of a lifer with that company, or is that your long-term goal? Yeah.
Definitely. I would tell you, General Mills has been a ton of fun to work for. I think we've got just an absolutely fantastic team that I work with, and I think our company has really been focused on a ton of passion around supporting everyone that comes through the organization and coach and develop them along the way. And so I've actually been fortunate enough to get several promotions, move around the company, get different experiences. I've been able to sell to Walmart, the largest grocer in the country. I'm currently on our Kroger sales team, where we get to sell to Kroger, which is the largest grocery store chain in the country that's not also kind of a big box retailer like a Walmart, but then have jumped on a number of different other accounts throughout the way. And so has been a ton of great experience for me. I'm leading part of our team that sells to Kroger now. I've got 10 folks that are on my team. And so it's been fun to kind of grow personally and with General Mills along the way. And so it's been just an absolute blast and great career experience.
So I'll try this, and it may not be that an answer comes to you, and you may not want to answer it, which is fine also. So
Okay.
And I'm asking only generally, not about anything specific, but how does sort of what's going on politically, and you're in Cincinnati right now, so you're in Ohio. So either in Ohio where you are currently, or national politics, how does that affect the business that you do, if at all?
I honestly don't have great visibility to that. I do know that at General Mills we have a lobbyist arm and stuff like that, and they have those conversations, but I don't have a ton of visibility to it. But I'm sure there are things that impact our business, but I'm not as super in tune to how that may roll up.
So in a economic slowdown caused by the pandemic, does that affect the grocery business? How has it affected your business?
Definitely. I would tell you we are selling a significant more. Sales are up because of the fact that more people are eating from home, and so that requires you to people are buying more from the grocery store, and so they're not going out to restaurants as often. And so General Mills is seeing a benefit from that. I would tell you it's been a positive impact in that regard. So yeah, that's probably the biggest driver of it.
Yeah. So is there anything about your time here at Mizzou, or about Mizzou, or anything that I haven't asked you that you were thinking maybe I was gonna, or hope that I would, or anything you want to say?
Nothing in particular. I would just, I would tell you, like, I'm super excited to be doing this. I'm glad that I'm able to kind of give back to the Mizzou students, and students in your class. My time at Mizzou was a lot of fun, and I would just say make the most of your time. I know it's a little bit more challenging with the COVID environment. There's probably different limitations and things that you have to navigate, but try to make the best of whatever environment you're in. And I would say to the students, I would say find ways to still continue to reach out and make friendships, but then also like leverage. I'm sure you guys deal with this, but like make sure you're leveraging your professors and all of the great resources on campus. I even tell that to the folks I work with. Just because we're not in an office together doesn't mean we still can't have the same level of connection. So, try to make the best of technology like Zoom that we're on now, to have a positive and robust experience. So that way, you can enjoy college to the fullest.
I couldn't have wrapped that up any better. Thank you for joining us, Joe. We really appreciate it. That was awesome. And continue good luck in your career at General Mills.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the time.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.